The world was pushed to its boundaries as a lot of people continue to survive, others successfully, while others in vain. And part of what caught up with all of us, most especially students and teachers, is keeping our mental health in the best condition. Tonight, we can all expect to be helped on this matter by an experienced expert in psychology. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on how to take care of our mental health, organized by Teachers of Boundless Borders and Clerks Life Group. I am Ferdinand Rodriguez, and I will be moderating tonight's proceedings. First, I would like to acknowledge those who are in this meet from as far as provinces, I guess, up north and even down south. We would also like to give a shout out to those who are in other parts of the world, particularly those from Indonesia. We have Miss Daisy and Miss Jane Carla from Jakarta, and Nerissa and Buboy in Medan. Good evening to you guys over there. And of course, to those who are here in Metro Manila, who comprise the bulk of our participants tonight. We have Ma'am Clarissa and Ma'am Lani Lin, both from SAS. We also have Angelica Advincula and Miriam Espino, and we'll be expecting others to be joining us in a while. It is with such great delight and gratitude that we acknowledge your presence and participation in tonight's webinar. We all deserve a warm virtual applause. Tonight, we are gathered to be enlightened with the words of our guest speaker, who will talk about how to take care of our mental health, especially that we are still bound by the fear of the pandemic. Our speaker obtained his PhD in counseling psychology and master's in science in guidance and counseling from the De La Salle University, Manila. He has also completed a certificate in sports counseling from the San Diego University from the Integrative Studies in California, USA. He is a registered guidance counselor and psychologist. He is an active member of the Philippine Guidance and Counseling Association and the Psychological Association of the Philippines, where he has been certified as a counseling psychologist. He is a junior consultant in Makati Medical Center and served as the vice subsection head of the Allied Mental Health Professionals Division of the Department of Neurosciences, Section of Psychiatry. As of December 2016, he has also expanded his practice to Asian Hospital and Medical Center in Muntinlupa. What I have just mentioned is only a portion of what our speaker tonight has achieved as a much respected psychologist. To talk to us about taking care of our mental health in this time of pandemic is Dr. Ramon Eduardo Gustilo Villasor Sr. Good evening, Dr. Teddy.
Good evening, Sir Dang. Well, thank you for your very generous introduction. I'd like to say good evening again to our teachers. And before I begin, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Teachers for Boundless Borders Facebook group for having me this evening. I'd also like to take this brief moment to invite all of our Facebook participants, especially our educators, to sit comfortably in your respective homes or offices. Now kindly close your eyes and take a deep, relaxing breath. Remember, you are a frontliner, one that has been expected to brave through the constant wave of challenges brought about by the pandemic. They are innumerable, yet you have each risen to the occasion and continue to educate. Thank you for your sacrifices. Most of all, thank you for being a teacher. When you are ready, you may open your eyes. In looking through the many questions that you have sent us over the past 2 weeks, a chief concern that came to our attention was that of work-related burnout. The short presentation that I'm about to share with you this evening will touch on a number of areas, including this one. That said, always be mindful that there are many ways that an issue can be addressed. And what I will be sharing with you is but one perspective. In seeing many patients over the years, I have been known to give a list of rules over the course of a therapeutic relationship. The one that I'm about to share with you is one of them. Rule number 4, be open-minded. Do your research across multiple platforms and take into consideration as many informed opinions as you can before coming to your own conclusion. It's the smartest move, really. Sir Deng, are you ready? All right, now on to our session proper. The following content is part of a book that I am currently writing. By August 2021, sections of the book will be released weekly on my online platform, teddy.substack.com. Okay, I will show you that link. We'll show you that slide in a bit. All right. On March 15, 2020, our way of living seemingly changed overnight. Industries on every level were forced to adapt on the fly when our medical and academic sectors were given even less time. Professional expectations have always been high, but never more so than it is today. At the heart of it all is the individual, and for the purposes of this talk, the teacher. Having been in school for more than 20 years, I have always found teachers to be among the most resilient. Actually, most are master jugglers, able to take on numerous roles or don proverbial hats, if you will, at a moment's notice. A teacher, first and foremost, imparts knowledge. He or she also serves as a confidant, cheering squad, and a friend in school. At home, they assume other roles: a father, mother, son, daughter, maybe a brother or a sister, husband or wife, just to name a few. But on the 15th of March 2020, all that changed. Teachers were now expected to assume all of those roles and then some at a moment's notice. And referring to it as a quote unquote tall order by any stretch of the imagination, end quote, is clearly an understatement. I mean, who could have seen the greatest challenge of our generation coming, right? Yet, here we are, and only one more question remains. How are we going to rise above it? The following 5-point perspective is geared towards assisting teachers or anybody watching tonight with stress management concerns. And here we go. May we have the first slide, please? Number 1 is what I call ABCDs to your E, remembering the alphabet. When faced with a seemingly insurmountable task or situation, it is essential to remember what I call the ABCDs to your E. What does this mean? First is A. Assess your situation. When faced with a stressful situation, it is important to be able to take a step back in order to see things just a little bit more clearly. Sun Tzu, the Chinese general and military strategist, once said, quote, "If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle," end quote. But let's say for a moment that you do know your enemy. Wall Street's Bud Fox, channeling his inner Sun Tzu, would then advise, quote, "If equally matched, fight. If not, split, reevaluate," end quote. That last one being one of my favorite movie quotes of all time. Now the enemy. Not literally a physical foe, rather a reference to your presenting concern. Among all of your troubles, and I'm sure there are many, what is that is bothering you the most at this very moment? So guys, I want to give you a moment to think about that one. One, okay? Not two, not three, just one. One, what is the concern that is troubling you the most at this very moment? Have you got it? Good. Now, how does one wade through the proverbial weeds of ascertaining their presenting concern? Well, that's simple, by physically writing it down. The acronym that I love to use is WTSD, which means write that S down. The quote unquote S being another four-letter word for poop. See? Now, with my ever so colorful acronym, you'll always remember what WTSD means. But I digress. By putting pen to paper, you are now equipped to not only separate facts from assumptions, but are hopefully spared of rationalization that happens when you solely leave those thoughts in your head. Finally, well, more hopefully, the real issue should emerge and become real. Remember what the kids of today say. Real knows real. B, breathing is of the utmost importance. Next, please. Next letter. Thank you. When faced with high-stress situations, it is not uncommon for an individual to hold their breath. Have you guys ever ridden a roller coaster? Sure you have. Do you remember how you felt the moment the coaster was about to take that really high dip? What did you do? You inadvertently held your breath, right? For some immersed in a high-stress situation or environment, there could be a tendency to unconsciously hold their respective breaths. This could lead to a lack of oxygen and progressing a bit further, likely somatic pains in your body. Somatic pains is there's no rational or physical explanation for it, but it hurts. So how can you remedy this and make sure that you are not unconsciously holding your breath? Well, you can start by putting your index finger below your nose and above your upper lip. Inhale through your nose and then exhale through your mouth. Wash, rinse, repeat. You guys get the idea. Next, C, control the controllables. For those who have had sessions with me, they will be very familiar with Dr. Teddy's rule number 1, which is the only person you can control is yourself. Let's think back to the presenting issue that I asked you to identify earlier. You guys still remember it? Now, does your stress situation involve another person? Yes. Maybe no. Maybe? If so, always remember that the only factor that is within your control is what you think and feel. You need to start training yourself to think in this manner. Like learning to walk, run, or drive a car, it will take time. And you know what they say? All good things take time. Next, please, D. D is developing contingencies. When faced with any task, I have found the amount of preparation given usually equates to a desirable outcome. Simply put, if you prepare for every eventuality, then you won't get rattled because, well, you've been in that hypothetical situation before. An excellent example for contingencies is the end of a basketball game. I'm a big basketball guy. I'm sure you've seen the television camera zoom into the huddle. With his team down a point and a few seconds to go in regulation, we find the head coach diagramming a play on a whiteboard as his players eagerly look on. Once play resumes, everybody seems to know their respective roles. They know what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to go. This does not happen by happenstance. It is practiced beforehand. You know, just in case there's a situation like this, These are called ATOs, basketball lingo for after timeout plays. Another example is my time with an international organization called CISV, wherein we would run camps, mini camps, ages, a group would be ages 9 to 11, another group could be 12 to 15, with the intention of teaching peace education, global friendship, as well as a specific theme. Let's say recycling, the need to care for the environment, and so on. These mini camps usually last for about 4 days, and our schedule could run from 8 in the morning until 10 in the evening. Needless to say, we needed to optimize our time. In order to do that, we had to have contingency plans. Let's say, for example, our activity block would run for an hour and a half. We would need to prepare for games that would run for that given period, be it 1, 2, or 3 games. The team would also have to prepare for 1 or 2 backups, just in case a fortuitous event would arise, like say rain. The lesson here is this: it is important to always have something in your proverbial bag of tricks. These are your contingencies, your backup plan, your break glass in case of emergency, your go-to activity. So never leave home without it. And E, next please, is execute the plan. Now that you've done all the planning, it's time for action. So make sure that you've done your ABCs to the D before you get started on your E. Remember to give yourself ample time to practice, because practice makes perfect. There's an old saying in basketball: game time isn't practice time. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've done number 1, which is the ABCDs to your E, remembering the alphabet. And now I'm going to discuss with you tolerance of risk. Part of the reason why I'm discussing this is if you know what you're getting yourself into, less likely are you to fear it. So what is tolerance of risk? Pre-pandemic, tolerance of risk is defined as the risk that one takes the moment they step out their front door. What do I mean? If they are to drive a car, there's a certain amount of risk that they take to get from point A to point B. Not because they're not a good driver, but there could be a hole in the road, a slippery area, or a driver who may not be as careful as you. When a passenger rides your car, they put their life in your hands. There's a certain amount of risk that's involved there. They hope that you are an excellent driver. When we cross the street, when you ride the bus, when you ride a jeep, when you ride an airplane, 30,000 feet in the air, what is an oxygen mask going to do, or an escape hatch going to do? We have taken these risks, but we've taken it so frequently that we don't think of it as we are in any danger. All right? So that is a definition of tolerance of risk. That was pre-pandemic. Now that we're in a pandemic, you need to realize that when you step out that door, your front door, you are taking a risk. Why? Because our enemy is unseen. All right? So you can take all the precautions that you can, but we'll never know if the other person in front of you has taken the same precautions, or they are aware that they may not be well. We don't know. But ladies and gentlemen, don't let this stop you from doing what you need to do, because we all need to live our lives. The world's still going to turn, and we still need to do what we're going to do, especially the teachers who have to educate our young. All right, so just be cautious, be aware, and if you know, like a lesson plan that you prepared, when you disseminate it to your students, you are more confident. Know what's out there, know how to protect yourself, and you'll be more confident when you step out the door, should you need to step out the door. Number 3 is learn compartmentalization. Sir Deng, what is your, may I ask, what is your favorite cake that you like to eat?
I've um, I've always liked Sans Rival, Doc Teddy.
All right. Actually, we had that. We had that this afternoon.
Oh, good.
In one whole cake, if we were to cut it into equal slices, how many slices would we have, sir?
Perhaps 8, Doc.
That would be a good estimate. Now, why am I using the Sanseval cake as an example? Everyone, think of the Sanseval cake as your life. Different slices of your life. One slice could be your academics. One slice could be your personal life. Another slice could be your social life, your spiritual life, your physical health, exercising and so on. Okay. What's my point here? Just because one slice in your whole Sanseval cake of your life is not going well, it does not mean that the other slices are affected. You must learn to compartmentalize. What is that? Take things in segments. Take things in manageable bites. Okay, so again, being very at point. If I were to ask Sir Deng to eat the entire Sanseval cake in one sitting, sir, is that possible?
Yes, Doc, it is. But for tonight, no. not tonight.
Okay. Not everybody has the appetite of Sir Deng. Some people may say 1 or 2 slices.
Would be enough.
Okay. But if I asked you to eat 1 slice for each meal over the course of several days, for sure you'll be able to finish the Sanseval cake, Sir Deng, right?
Definitely, Doc, then.
All right. What does this mean, everyone? If you are able to compartmentalize and take your concern as a slice and focus solely on that, you will be able to address it, hopefully consume it, get rid of it, and move on to other things. So sometimes when we feel the world is falling on our heads and everything that can possibly go wrong has gone wrong, we should refrain from thinking that way and start to focus on what is it that is really bothering us. Again, as I said earlier, does it involve other people or just you? You need to focus on yourself and what you can control. Okay? So that is my lesson for compartmentalization. Number 4 is sacred space. Next, please. All right, for sacred space, remember the many hats analogy that I made at the start of our webinar? The one referring to the many roles assumed by a teacher. One possible reason why a teacher may be experiencing stress or burnout is because they are overwhelmed by their overlapping responsibilities. Pre-COVID, a teacher would have been able to physically leave their home along with their husband, wife, and or their parent hat, they'll leave it at home and move into their teacher headspace. Manila traffic and all. So by the time they reach the school, they're able to set aside, the rules from the home and focus on their lesson plans and what they need to do in school. Then as they move to their journey back home, they're able to set aside the role of a teacher and move back into the headspace of a spouse or parent. Today, that same teacher wears all of those hats 24/7. It can be overwhelming. So what can we do? The need for sacred space has never been greater. What I suggest to my patients is this. You must fix a certain area of your home, designate it as your workspace. By doing so, when you enter that workspace, it's all business. It's all about school. The moment you stand up and leave that space, then you can assume your other roles and other responsibilities. It is a small change, but it is a physical change, a visual change that when you see it, you can turn the mechanism in your head. One movie that I love is Kevin Costner's For the Love of the Game. I'm not sure if you guys have watched that. It's a baseball movie. For those of you who have watched it, there's a part at the end wherein Kevin Costner, who is a pitcher, is heckled by uh, a crowd of angry fans, opposing fans. And what he says to himself is, if I remember correctly, it is turn on the mechanism. Meaning to say he has to focus on the person he is pitching to. And then all of a sudden, the noise around him drowns out, and all he hears is a deafening silence. So you need to have that kind of mindset when you sit in that chair in your sacred space. You are wearing the hat of a teacher, and not any other hat other hats that you have at home. Again, it will take practice. You guys didn't learn addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division in one day. That took time. You had to learn one addition first before we could learn subtraction. We had to learn subtraction before we could do multiplication, and so on. Learning this will take time. But the key element here is you have to believe in it. Number 5, and I will end my talk with this, it is engaging in a passion project. In 2016, I have 20/20 vision, ladies and gentlemen, and in 2016, my vision was getting, I would have difficulty looking far away, and I went to see my ophthalmologist, and he checked my eyes, and when he removed his machine, he immediately stood up and extended his hand for me to shake it, which I immediately took because he's my friend. And he said to me, "Congratulations," which I didn't know what it meant at the time. But what he was saying, he added, "It's starting." Meaning to say, once you hit a certain age, your eyesight's gonna get progressively worse. There's nothing you can do about it. So what I did was, remember what I was teaching you guys earlier? Instead of focusing on the things that you can't control, focus on yourself. So what did I do? My birthday was coming up. I channeled all of my efforts into coming up with a coloring book. Okay, I chose 28 pieces, DC Comics art pieces, and I fashioned the book complete. I had an introduction written, a preface written. I wrote an introduction. I had an outro. And that started my journey because I could not, my eyesight wasn't going to get any better. So I focused on the things that I could do. So I came out with one book in 2017. I decided I couldn't draw for the life of me. So I decided to collaborate. I came out with one comic book in 2018. One comic book in 2017, 2 comic books in 2018. And finally 3 in 2019. So the plan was, of course, 4, raising the bar and making 4 in 2020. But of course, we all know what happened to all of us. I am happy to say, though, that despite these challenges brought about by the pandemic, my co-creator, Randy Valiente, and I were able to finish our 6th book. So I've broken down, since then, I've used the passion project concept intervention with my patients. And I've broken it down to 4 categories: writing, drawing, painting, and coloring. These are the 4 pillars. 3 of the 4 involve publishing, while the last one involves setting up a one-man or one-woman show. That's the paintings, an art show. This is, of course, pre-pandemic, but we can modify it for the world that we live in now. Inspired patients have added a few more to my list of 4. These are photography, gardening, and cooking. The essential point here is you must have a time-bound activity. So 1 calendar year from your birthday. So if your birthday is in January, it's done already. So next January. Okay. So your birthday is on March 7, tomorrow. Uh, one calendar year will pass. So you're supposed to complete it by March 7, 2022. All right. So it has to be time bound. It has to involve the use of your hands. Okay. And time bound is very important. Why? Because if you don't police yourself, it's not going to move. If this is something that interests you, you need to have this, I wouldn't call it a distraction, rather an inspiration in your life. Maybe with something that we can discuss in a future one-on-one Zoom session. So that ends my short talk. Next slide, please. Thank you. All right. For my new passion project for 2021 is my newsletter, teddy.substack.com. That's how you guys write it on your search string. You don't put www in front. Now, a new newsletter drops every Monday evening. And we've also started a podcast, which is called the 10 Minutes or Less podcast. So that's also part of the newsletter. The newsletter is free. I invite you to check it out. If it's something that appeals to you, kindly subscribe. If you feel that you have a friend who may like it, kindly share. If you have questions that you'd like to ask me, one or two questions about my presentation this evening, you can email me at villasor@gmail.com. That's my last name, Villasor. If you want to schedule a session with me, you can also use this particular email. You can also visit my website, teddy31.com, for more information about me. So thanks, everyone. I understand we have more questions to follow. Sir Dan.
Let's talk, Teddy. You're right. You've shared us so many insights, and this time we would like to entertain some questions that have been sent to us for you to address them. Let's begin with our first one. What are the noticeable red flags that mark that someone already needs to seek professional help?
Okay. Thank you for that question. Before I answer this, I'd like to direct everybody to the start of my talk earlier, wherein my perspective is but one perspective, and there are many others. So it's important to collect as much data as you can regarding a certain situation. In answering questions, I also tend not to generalize because my answer for one question may differ from another. So it's very important to have, if you guys are going to be asking questions later or you have comments, try to give me as much information as I can so I can give you an informed opinion. All right. So, but we will take this at face value, and I will certainly do my best. What are the noticeable red flags that mark that someone already needs to seek professional help? Well, one is there is a lack of self-care, meaning to say they are not taking care of themselves anymore. You know, maybe they are their physical hygiene is suffering. That could be a sign that they need professional help. Another one is if they have approached a friend and they felt that they may need to talk to somebody. That could also be a sign. You know, they're wanting to seek help, but they just don't know who to seek help from. So if that friend knows someone, they can direct them to the right person or to the right center. Okay, other red flags are maybe how they are talking. For example, you know, there are some they might be using some not very encouraging words like I'm always so tired, or maybe they're prematurely saying goodbye, or they're getting their affairs in order. These are some red flags that we look at, but again, we always try to look at it from a case-to-case basis. Sometimes when somebody reaches out in this manner, it's their cry for help. So maybe an event has to happen for them to be able to seek help to get their life in order.
Um, Doc Teddy, what if, for example, you have this red flags and a person is still in denial that this could be something that is affecting him, or how do you do
Right.
that?
Okay. There are 5 stages. Okay. It is originally a book. It's a book uh, by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Uh, she's a Swiss doctor who wrote a book on death and dying. Now, her book, I'll give you guys the gist of it. It talks about the stages that one goes through when they go through a physical death. And you guys can remember it by the acronym DABDA. DABDA. The first step is, as you said, Sir Deng, it is denial. Next is anger. This is followed by bargaining. Maybe, if this situation happens and this situation happens, then I'll be okay.
Mhm.
This is followed by depression. And finally, A, which is acceptance. Now, I caution everybody, there is no timetable for each of the stages, and you have to go through all. I've had patients who have told me, I think I've skipped stage 2 and moved on to stage 4. Or I moved on to stage 5. So it's of course people would know themselves best, but we try to look at this uh, on intervals, a 3, 6, 9, 12-month interval to show to see if they have shown marked improvement.
I see. Okay. Doc, we move on to our next question. This time, how does one keep sane and remain focused?
Okay, Sir Dan, this is what I mean. We have no context here on what the person is going through. So
Okay.
it can be a very difficult question to answer. But again, to keep sane, if I'm going to take the term very loosely, it's very important to have a long-term goal. You have a short-term goal and long-term goal. This is like you're in a boat in the middle of the ocean and you see the light that's emitting from the lighthouse. You definitely want to get to the lighthouse because there's no way the lighthouse is going to be in the middle of the water. That's land. You want to get to land. So to keep sane is you are focused on that goal. You are driven and motivated towards that goal. So that answers the second question about remaining focused. Because their ultimate goal is to get to land. Because if they start thinking, oh, I'm going to run out of food, the elements are going to get me, that only puts them further away from their mission, which is to get to land. So in order to remain sane, remain focused and remain sane, you need to have a long-term goal. You need to identify first what that long-term goal is, but you should have one.
All right. Our next question, though, is what mental health activities can you suggest for kids and adults?
Um, I really feel very bad for the kids, especially the younger ones, because you only are 8 once, you're only 9 once, you're only 10 once, you're only 7 once. And the lack of physical play outdoors, it's very important. So at least for the first 3 months of the pandemic, we were all discouraged as a nation to step out unless we really, really needed to. Now, I think they've lowered it to age, the bracket is now 15 to 60, if I'm not mistaken, or 65. But these kids, they need activity. So, of course, if there is a field that you can bring them to, and maybe you can have a regular walking activity, for example, you have something that they can look forward to each week, like clockwork. Dr. Hani Karandang, a very well-respected child psychologist, said, you have to have 3 things. Consistency, CPR. This is the CPR for psychology. This is, we give credit to Dr. Karanda for coming up with our CPR. CPR stands for consistency, predictability, and routine. This is the investment that you make in your children. So it doesn't matter what specific activity I give. It has to be an activity that is embraced by the whole family. And from there, like a rose, it will spring forth and grow and blossom.
Okay. And there's some multiple of activities that can be done even if it's just indoors. Now that we are not locked in, and
So
there's
yes,
that can be done.
you can have movie night, you can have game board night.
Yes,
You know,
table
but all the
game.
kids are on mobile devices, so I'm of a fan of introducing them of the games of olden times like Monopoly, Sorry, and Scrabble.
So it's not necessarily just um, not only physical activities. It can
You
even be
need a
just
you need to balance it.
okay to keep a balance of that.
Remember, consistency, predictability, and routine. But it's not there. But balance should be part of it as well.
Oh, we still have another one. How many times a week can we allot for self-reflection or self-care? Is there such a time, Doc Teddy?
Yes, there is. Anytime is the best time. A person knows themselves best. If they put a premium in self-reflection and self-care, then it will mean something. Because if, okay, let's just take a look at it as educators, as teachers. If, ladies and gentlemen, if you yourself are not 100%, how can you give the best possible service to your family and to your students? That's why self-reflection is important, because you won't know what you need to take care of and to work on. And self-care is also important because you must know when to give yourself a break. You know, I think one teacher told me they're in front of a computer for more than 10 hours. That's too much.
Uh-huh.
Now, if that radiation or something else, and baka they're superheroes already. They absorb all the radiation. They can fly in there. No, but jokes aside, that's a lot of time in front of a computer. And remember, your eyes are your instruments to be able to do your work effectively. Take care of them. So that's self-care.
And there's another one.
Okay.
What can be done as a first aid if during online classes you suddenly felt the need to take a breather?
Okay. This is where the contingency plans that I was talking about come in. All right. Now, as teachers, I'm pretty sure you've done this, but when you are in a panic, you may not be able to pull it out of your proverbial bag of tricks, so to speak. Remember, you are the teacher. You are the authority in the room, be it a virtual room or a physical classroom. You're calling the shots, is what I'm getting at. Meaning to say, if you need them to take a bathroom break, let them. Then you can pause and compose yourself. All right? If kung hindi bathroom break, water break. Everybody needs a water break. Okay, so these are some interventions that you could use if you find yourself in a bind that you need a minute to compose yourself. Because it's as an educator and as the leader of the classroom, it is it is up to you to utilize these interventions as you see fit. No, but then again, if your 2-minute break becomes a 10-minute break, a 15-minute break, then and you always use it all the time. Then that's maybe you need to consult with somebody already. Maybe there's something more than just a momentary lapse. Maybe there's something else that needs to be dealt with.
Yes, Doc. Okay. Next we have how. Okay. What? Oh, this one, right?
This is it. This is it. Mhm.
Okay. How can we make our students understand that their teachers also experience stress and burnout?
I think it's important that we add stakeholders there, because whoever asked this question put in stakeholders. So stakeholders, if you really look at it, let's just take that word. These are people who are invested in the company. Okay, so If we look at it as the school or the class or whatnot. Okay, so how to make students understand that teachers also experience stress and burnout. Ladies and gentlemen, not to be too rough, but I'm just being very realistic. It's not the responsibility of the students to understand, especially if they're of a younger age group. You can't expect them to understand. They have already had a hard time understanding multiplication and division. You're going to make them understand stress and burnout. They may not get it, or at least they may not understand it to the level that you see it. So what can you do? Make sure that you've taken upon yourself to have self-care yourself to address these issues so that they don't um, intensify and affect other aspects of your life. So in this particular case, the example I gave earlier, compartmentalization is the cake. Clearly, there might be something happening either in school or at home that exacerbates the stress and the burnout. It should not, so if it's at home, it should not affect the school. It should not affect the other aspects of our life, theoretically, because we are professionals. And when we have a job to do, we have a job to do. But if we really need to take time off, we take time off. Don't try to do everything at once and expect other people to understand, because they may not be able to for whatever reason. Okay, so what am I getting at? Focus on you. Take care of your number one resource, which is yourself. If you need help, ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yes, Doc. And our last question for tonight is, how can one train oneself on these strategies to ease burnout and stress?
Well, before you can train yourself on how to deal with it, you need to identify what is causing the burnout and what is causing the stress. All right. Before you get to burnout, it's stress. The moment you get to burnout, how do you know that you're burnt out? I'll give you guys an idea of how it works. Burnout is not so much as it can be like you're at home and you don't want to move and you don't want to do anything anymore. All right. But there can also be what is called situational burnout, which is when I'll just pause for a moment. Our clock's going to ring 9 times. Situational burnout, if you guys can hear me through the ringing, yes. Think about the activity that you don't like to do. All right. Yeah, you absolutely hate it. Let's be honest here, you're gonna find every reason not to do it. Not to go, you're gonna drag your feet in accomplishing that paper or whatnot. Right? Or you're gonna feel sick or under the weather. Anything but you're not gonna do it. However, when your gaze turns to, let's say, a computer game or a book that you enjoy or going out with your friends, all of a sudden you have all the energy in the world. That's situational burnout. So it's important to identify what it is first. Identify what your stressors are. Be able to look at it logically. Maybe if you can do it with yourself, so be it. If you need to have counseling or therapy with a psychologist, an option. What I suggest to people is try it once, so that if it's food, for example, so that you know how it tastes like, then you can make under your own estimation if it's for you or not for you. The same goes for therapy. Don't base it on how other people see it. It might be good to see how you would look at it.
All right, Doctor. I think that's our last question for tonight. Yes, it is. And so at this point, once again, we would like to invite you to subscribe to the newsletter of Doc Ted. You could see it on screen. And if you have any other questions that you would like to ask Doc Ted, you may send him an email. You could also find his email flash on your screens right now.
One or two questions, Sir Dan. One or two questions.
Only?
Yes, because that can. I have had emails that have been novella type.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that we fall under a structure of one or two questions.
Okay. And let's make that brief and straight to the point, right, Doc Teddy?
Well, if you want to give more, that's fine. But my answers may be brief. And then
Okay.
maybe make a recommendation. But let's keep it to one or two questions.
All right. I hope that's crystal clear for everyone. At this point, we would like to present this. I would like to call on Paulo for the awarding of the virtual certificate to our guest speaker for tonight.
Good evening. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Teddy Villasor. On behalf of the group Teachers of Boundless Borders, we would like to recognize you with a certificate of recognition, as a certificate of appreciation for speaking to all our teachers and those who are also encountering this problem. These how to take care of our mental health. Okay, so this certificate of appreciation is awarded to Dr. Ramon Eduardo Gustilo Villasor Sr. for sharing his expertise and knowledge as a guest speaker for the virtual talk on how to take care of your mental health. And we would also like to recognize our master of ceremony for tonight. This certificate of appreciation is awarded to Mr. Ferdinand Maria C. Rodriguez for sharing his time and talent as the master of ceremony for the virtual talk on how to take care of your mental health on this date, March 6th, organized by us, Teachers of Boundless Borders. It's me, Paolo, and also Apple, and the people also behind the scenes of this, also Portia, my wife Portia as well. Okay. Thank you so much, and we hope you've learned from this webinar.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much
Thank
to
you.
Teachers of Boundless Borders and to clerks. Dr. Teddy, any last few words for us this evening?
Sorry, Sir Dan, I lost you for a second.
sorry.
Could you kind of repeat what you said?
Dr. Teddy, if there's any more last words that we could hear from you.
Oh yes. I'd like to thank again the teacher for the Facebook group, Teachers for Boundless Borders. Teacher Apple, Sir Dan, I'd like to thank you, Sir Paulo, and Sir Portia. And of course, Father Cruz for giving us that nice prayer at the start of our session this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc Teddy. Definitely helped us deal with this present situation that most teachers, and not only teachers, but students are in right now. Before we wrap up, I would like to make a